You have been told a story about motivation your entire life. It goes something like this. You set a goal. You visualize the outcome. You remind yourself how good it will feel to achieve it. You push through the resistance. You stay disciplined. You keep your eyes on the prize. And if you just want it badly enough, if the desire is strong enough, if the reward is clear enough, the motivation will follow. This is the story that fills self-help books and motivational speeches and corporate training programs, and the caption on every sunrise photograph posted to the internet at 5 in the morning. It is the dominant narrative of human achievement in the modern world. And according to decades of research in neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and evolutionary biology, it is wrong. Not partially wrong. Not wrong in some edge cases. Wrong at the foundation. Wrong about what motivation actually is, where it comes from, how it works, and what destroys it. And the truth, the actual science of what drives human beings to act, is so different from the story you have been told that understanding it will change not just how you approach your goals, but how you understand yourself. Start with what motivation actually is. Not the pop psychology version. The biological one. Motivation is not a feeling. It is not willpower. It is not discipline. It is not desire. These are all symptoms of motivation, effects it produces, not the thing itself. Motivation, at its most fundamental level, is a neurochemical state. It is the result of a specific interaction between the dopaminergic system, the brain's reward prediction network, and the prefrontal cortex's capacity for future planning. And understanding how that interaction actually works will explain why almost everything you have been told about how to generate motivation is not just ineffective, but actively counterproductive.
If you can hear waves, you are near food, near safety, near the margin of survival. You are, in the deepest biological sense, okay. That signal did not disappear when humans moved inland. That signal did not vanish when agriculture was invented, when cities were built, when the ocean became something you drove to on weekends rather than something you depended on for every meal. Evolution does not work that fast. The encoding takes hundreds of thousands of years to lay down, and it takes at least as long to fade. You carry it right now in your amygdala and your cortisol system, and your vagal nerve and your diving reflex and the particular way your breathing changes when you first hear waves. Marine psychologist Michael Depledge at the University of Exeter has conducted extensive research on what he calls blue space, the measurable psychological and physiological effects of proximity to water environments. His studies, conducted across populations in England, found that people who live within a kilometer of the coast consistently report better mental health outcomes than those living further inland, even after controlling for income, age, and social factors. The effect is not small, it is significant. It is the kind of effect size that, if produced by a medication, would be considered clinically relevant. And it is not just the ocean. Rivers, lakes, even fountains and urban waterways produce measurable calming effects. But the ocean produces the strongest and most consistent response of all. Because the ocean, unlike a lake or a river, produces the full multisensory package that the ancestral nervous system associated with safety and survival. The sound, which is a form of pink noise, that acoustically soothing frequency pattern that also makes rain so calming, combined with the visual rhythm of waves, which the brain processes as a predictable, low-demand visual pattern that activates soft fascination, combined with the smell of salt air, which triggers neural pathways associated with freshness and oxygenation, combined with the feeling of water on skin, which activates pressure receptors in a way that is neurologically similar to being held. The ocean does not just calm one system, it calms every system simultaneously. There is a concept in evolutionary psychology called an environment of evolutionary adaptedness, the term coined by John Bowlby and developed by Lita Cosmids and John Tooby at the University of California, Santa Barbara, to describe the ancestral environment in which human psychological mechanisms were selected and shaped. The claim is not that humans evolved in one specific place or landscape. The claim is that certain recurring features of the ancestral environment, Social groups, open landscapes with shelter, water sources, fire, became so consistent a backdrop to human survival that the brain developed specific responses to them. Positive responses to their presence, negative responses to their absence. The ocean is one of the oldest and most consistent features of that backdrop. It is not a metaphor for freedom. It is not a symbol of mystery. It is a place where your species survived over and over across hundreds of thousands of years of climate shifts and migrations and near-extinction events. Your brain knows this, not in the way it knows your name or your childhood home, in a deeper way, in the way it knows to breathe, in the way it knows that darkness means caution and fire means warmth, and the sound of running water means life is somewhere near. So the next time you stand at the edge of the ocean and feel that unnamed pull, that wordless recognition, that sense of something releasing in your chest, know what you are actually feeling. You are not being romantic. You are not being sentimental. You are receiving a message from a nervous system that has been shaped by millions of years of surviving on the edge of the world. A nervous system that recognizes, in the particular frequency of the waves and the smell of the salt and the light on the water, the oldest signal it knows. You are safe here. Food is near. The predators have not followed you into the sea. Whatever was chasing you out there in the world cannot reach you here. Stand at the edge of the ocean. Let the water reach your feet. Something in you that is older than language, older than memory, older than any version of yourself you have ever been, already knows exactly where it is.
And the work that followed it from researchers like Nico Bunzek and Imre Duzel at University College London suggests the opposite is true. When the outcome is too certain, too guaranteed, too known, the dopamine response flattens. The brain stops generating the anticipatory signal. The motivation disappears. Not because you don't want the goal anymore, but because the uncertainty that drives the system has been removed. Certainty kills motivation. Predictability kills motivation. Knowing exactly what you are going to get and exactly when you are going to get it is one of the most reliable ways to extinguish the neurochemical state that drives action. This is why most long-term goals fail. Not because people don't want them enough. Not because they lack discipline. Because the goal is too far away, too abstract, too certain in its imagined form, and the brain's dopamine system cannot maintain arousal across that kind of distance. The prediction gap is too large. The uncertainty is too diffuse. The reward is too theoretical to fire the system that was built for immediate, concrete, proximate possibilities. Psychologist Edward Deci and his colleague Richard Ryan at the University of Rochester have spent over 4 decades developing what is now called self-determination theory, one of the most extensively researched frameworks in motivational psychology. Their research identifies 3 fundamental psychological needs that, when met, produce what they call intrinsic motivation, the kind of motivation that is self-sustaining, does not require external rewards or punishments, and is the only kind that produces genuine long-term engagement. Those 3 needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. That you are acting from your own volition, that the behavior is genuinely chosen rather than coerced. Competence is the feeling that you are capable of meeting the challenges in your environment, that you are growing, learning, and improving in ways that feel meaningful. Relatedness is the feeling of genuine connection with others, that what you are doing matters to people you care about, and that you are not alone in the doing of it. When all 3 needs are met, intrinsic motivation is strong, persistent, and essentially self-renewing. When any of them is absent or undermined, motivation collapses, often suddenly and in ways that feel confusing and demoralizing. And here is what makes Deci and Ryan's research so disruptive to the conventional story: external rewards, the kind that motivational culture relies on most heavily, money, prizes, public recognition, grades, performance bonuses, consistently undermine intrinsic motivation when applied to activities that were already intrinsically motivating. This is called the overjustification effect, and it has been replicated across hundreds of studies. When you take something a person genuinely loves doing, painting, writing, playing music, solving problems, and begin paying them to do it, or rewarding them with prizes, or tracking their output, or grading their performance, the intrinsic motivation degrades. The activity shifts from something done for its own sake to something done for the external reward. And when the external reward is removed or reduced, motivation often collapses below its original baseline. The reward does not add to the motivation. It replaces it. And when it disappears, it leaves a deficit where the original pleasure used to be. People who turn their passion into a career end up no longer loving the thing they once lived for. It is not a personality flaw. It is a neurological mechanism. The external structure of reward and accountability replaced the internal structure of genuine desire, and when the external structure became oppressive or uncertain, there was nothing left underneath it. But here is where the research becomes genuinely useful rather than simply disturbing. Because if the conventional story about motivation is wrong, there is a correct story. And the correct story offers something the conventional one never could. Not a trick. Not a technique. An understanding. Motivation is not generated by wanting the outcome strongly enough. It is generated by finding the process genuinely interesting. Not the destination. The doing. Not the goal. The problem. Not the prize. The puzzle. Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, drawing on Schultz's dopamine research, has described what he calls a motivation protocol that essentially involves learning to find the friction itself rewarding, to train the brain to release dopamine not in anticipation of the completed goal, but in anticipation of the effort required to move toward it. This is not motivational wordplay. It is a neurological repositioning. The target of the dopamine prediction signal is moved from the distant outcome to the proximate process. And because the process is immediate, concrete, variable, and challenging, the dopamine system engages. This is also why the most sustainably productive people in any field, the writers who write every day, the scientists who keep working through dead ends, the athletes who maintain decade-long training regimens, consistently describe not a burning desire for the outcome, but a genuine love of the work itself. Not the publication. The writing. Not the championship. The training. Not the discovery. The outcome is what they tell other people about. The process is what actually drives them. Deci and Ryan's research leads to the same conclusion from a different angle. Sustainable motivation is not produced by external rewards or punishments or by the vividness of imagined outcomes. It is produced by an environment that satisfies autonomy, competence, and relatedness. By work that you choose, that challenges you at the right level, that connects you to something and someone beyond yourself. This is also, incidentally, the reason that telling someone they should be motivated, that they just need to want it more, try harder, be more disciplined, is not only unhelpful but actively harmful. It misidentifies the cause of the problem. The issue is not insufficient desire. The issue is an environment that is undermining the psychological needs that produce motivation. Changing the environment is the solution. Generating more willpower is not. So here is the reframe that the science actually offers. Stop asking how motivated you feel. Start asking whether the conditions for motivation exist in what you are doing. Are you genuinely choosing this? Does it challenge you at the edge of your current capability? Does it connect you to something or someone you care about? Does it offer enough uncertainty and variability to keep the dopamine system engaged? Is the reward primarily in the doing rather than in the having done? If the answer to most of those questions is no, then no amount of visualization, discipline, or willpower will produce sustainable motivation. The system is not designed to run on those inputs. It is designed to run on something much more specific, much more biological, and much more human than the story you have been badly enough to push through indefinitely. You were designed to find certain things genuinely interesting, to be drawn toward them naturally, to engage with them, because the engagement itself is rewarding. The motivation you have been chasing is not something you generate by force. It is something that emerges when the conditions are right. The story you have been told about motivation is wrong. But the story underneath it, the one your nervous system has been running all along, is not wrong at all. It just requires a completely different relationship with what you are doing and why.